Mr President, can I just start at the outset by placing on the record and reminding the government and anybody who's listening to this debate that the Honourable Sarah Game is not alone in moving this motion. It is identical to the motion that was moved by the Honourable Ms Chentefanti. It is identical to the motion moved by the Honourable Tammy Franks, and it is identical to the motion moved by me. And that should be indicative of why we are standing here today. I don't take censure motions lightly. In fact, I haven't supported any censure motions previously. And that in and of itself should speak to the seriousness of the topic that we are debating today. We may not have all agreed on all of the detail when we moved those motions, but there are two things that we were fundamentally in absolute universal agreement on, and they are that they go to the heart of the sentiments that have been expressed by the mover of this motion today, and I share the sentiments that have been expressed by the mover of this motion today. And as I said, we don't make these decisions lightly. But they also go beyond that to the heart of everything that those who have been involved in these negotiations have been frustrated by since last year. And to suggest that this is personal, to suggest that we are after somebody's scalp it's objectionable, Mr President, because nothing could be further from the truth. This has nothing to do with making it personal or politicking, which is what we know has been happening every time the minister has commented publicly, but everything to do with the frustration of the MPs who have tried in genuine good faith to negotiate with the government and the minister on this issue, and the stakeholders and experts who have bent over backwards and pleaded and begged to be heard. It goes to the heart of everything that was at the centre of the inquiry that took place over Christmas, the submissions that were made, the open letter to every member of this place by the 3 commissioners who are responsible for vulnerable kids in our state. All 3 of them penned an open letter saying, please do not proceed with this bill. The Youth Court said, please do not proceed with this bill in its current state. Over 50 submissions to the inquiry, please do not proceed with this bill in this state. And it's taken this censure motion today for the government to finally extend an olive branch and say, let's sit down and talk about this bill. That is indicative of the attitude that we've had from the minister in response to this debate. And I don't have to repeat everything I've said publicly, Mr President, because it's all on the record. And I haven't been harsh without good reason, because it has been like pulling teeth to get some common sense to prevail. And so if there is any question, any doubt as to whether I am behind the Honourable Ms Game in terms of moving this motion, then that should be removed from people's minds now. Because unless and until, and the government has been on notice, unless and until the government and the minister show a genuine effort and intent to get this bill right, then the only thing left to us is this censure motion. And that is a sad state of affairs, not for us as politicians and not for us as a parliament, but for every vulnerable kid who we are letting down in the system, and we have consistently let down in the system. And every expert that has provided evidence who has said we have consistently, or we will let those kids down further if we make this. We know that this legislation has been an opportunity for generational reform. And what we've heard is a minister who has said over and over again that the rest of us are politicking and that she will not resign from her position. And I have responded to that by saying, well, I'll dig my heels in just as deep as you, but not because I'm taking this personally, Mr. President, because everything we have tried to date has failed. So it is little wonder then that we find ourselves in a position where we are considering and where we are voting on the censure motion. And I remind members again, regardless of the outcome, it's a pretty good outcome. It's a pretty good indication of where members sit on this issue. And it's a pretty good indication of where stakeholders sit on this issue. And I remind honourable members again that it is not the only one. There are 2 more censure motions sitting on the table. And they are there for a reason. We should never have got to this point. We should never have got to the point where we actually say, Minister, resign because you have failed to negotiate. We should not have got to a point where we say, Minister, you have failed in your duties and obligations to every vulnerable kid in the state who is looking to us to provide them with the level of protection that they deserve. It's a generational reform. We're not going to get this opportunity to think about whether we can change this again in a year. We have spent so many years reviewing this legislation. And if anyone suggests that between last year and now, the aim of those MPs who have supported this legislation is to politic, to play personal politics, or to hold up a bill, then they are very, very sorely mistaken. The reason we are here now in April is because up until now, up until the last 24 hours, there has been no opportunity to negotiate on those key fundamental reforms that everybody who has had input into this process has said is absolutely critical to this piece of legislation if it is to go forward. The Honourable Laura Henderson in the last week of sitting talked about whether or not this bill would be dumped if we did not move from our positions. Yes, it would. Setting kids back even further from that generational reform that we need in order to finally get a handle on child protection. Child protection is not an easy portfolio. We all know that. You don't take it on lightly. We all know that. Just like health, it is vexed. It is difficult. But what you don't do if you're the minister is dig your heels in and say, it's my way or the highway. That's what you don't do. And that is why we are here today. And it is genuinely my genuine hope that the discussions that are now underway will address those issues and we'll see some genuine attempt at addressing the fundamental flaws. As the Honourable Tammy Franks has said, you could drive a truck through the holes in this legislation. If we don't address those, then it's kids who pay the price. Nobody else. We don't pay the price, kids do. Vulnerable kids, the most vulnerable kids in our society pay the price. So of course, Mr. President, I'm going to stand here and speak on this motion today. Of course, Mr. President, I'm going to join my colleagues and put up an identical motion to the one that is being discussed today, because that is the only tool we've had left available to us to get the attention of government and the minister. That is a sad state of affairs in and of itself, and I find it objectionable that anybody would suggest that we are playing politics with something as important as the future of our vulnerable kids. Mr. President, on that note, I'll seek leave to conclude my remarks.